Good afternoon. This is Dr. John Bennett broadcasting from the headquarters in Miami Beach for Neurosurgical TV. Today we have the pleasure of having our weekly Young African Neurosurgeons group from Cameroon, led by Ulrich Sidney, an ambitious young neurosurgical student. And he also is going to introduce another speaker we have today. But first, let's go on the panel and introduce everyone. Dylan, good day. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dylan from Cameroon, 7th-year medical student from Cameroon.
Okay, welcome. Welcome. Okay, Arnaud, could you briefly introduce yourself?
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Arnaud Douanla, neurosurgical resident from Cameroon. I'm first-year neurosurgical resident.
Very good. Welcome, Arnaud. He's going to present later. Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Ulrich, and it's your show. Go ahead. Welcome.
Well, we have the presence of Rakesh, so hello, Rakesh.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Hey, Rakesh, how you doing?
You're muted,
yourself.
Rakesh. You unmute yourself.
Say hello to Ulrich.
Okay. Hello. Can you people hear me?
Yeah, we can
hear
hear you.
you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Rakesh Evi from Kolkata, India.
And he may be going with Ike to Nepal. Okay,
Yes,
Ulrich, it's all
yes.
Okay.
yours.
Thank you very much, John. So today we are going to have a presentation on skull anatomy for the temporal bone. It's a very complex bone and very important for the neurosurgeon. Today, then, we're going to have and welcome Dr. Arnaud Douanla, who's first-year neurosurgical resident in Cameroon. So you have the floor, Arnaud.
Okay, I have to share my screen first and start the presentation. Allow me 1 second, please. Okay, is everybody seeing my screen? My screen or? Okay. Okay, hello everyone. It's an honor for me and a pleasure to present this day on the temporal bone. I have to present about the anatomy of temporal bone, and I will start directly. So, concerning the temporal bone, we can say that the temporal bone is a pair bone forming the calvaria and the skull base. It's the main bone that forms the middle cranial fossa. This bone is divided in four portions. If we refer on embryology development, then sometimes we have some literature who divide it in 5 portions, but some persons say that the coeloid part of the bone is not a part of temporal bone. So the four parts we will divide, we will note here is the squamous part of the temporal bone, the petrous part, the tympanic part, and mastoid part. Let us speak about all the parts. Here we have the schema of the skull of the temporal bone. Here is the squamous part of the temporal bone, this place. We will talk about all the parts later. We have the squamous part coming from here. It contains the zygomatic process with the roots and the free parts. And here there is the tympanic part of the temporal bone, the styloid part, the mastoid part, also called petromastoid part of the bones. Okay, those are the 4 parts of the bones. So we will start our description by the petrous part of the bone. The petrous part is contained in this place. Like I said, we can say petromastoid part of the bone is this place, and that is one part of the bone which is more medial and intracranial than extracranial. We will see it more in the cerebral face of the temporal bone. So, concerning the petrous part, we have to say that petrous is a word that comes from Latin. The Latin word is petrosus, and it means stone-like, because the petrous bone is most of the dense bone of the body. is a bone whose surgical approach is not easy because of its location, because of its rigidity, and it is formed by mastoid cells, that is aerated cells. It is a pyramidal bone with a base external and oriented inside, anteriorly, medially, and a little upward. The petrous bone will have three faces: anterior one, posterior, and inferior. It has three borders: the superior, the posterior, and the anterior. The petrous bone is wedged in at the skull base between the sphenoid and the occipital bone. And we will describe first the anterior face of the bone. The anterior face of the bone is in contact with the cerebral face of the squamous part of the temporal bone, and it protects the temporal bone of the brain. These bones contain many of the important structures like vasculonervous structures and an organ or an auditory organ of the body. We will see on the anterior face the impression of the trigeminal nerves, which is the fifth nerve, the fifth cranial nerve, and at this place we will see the trigeminal ganglion. This ganglion is very important because at this place is a place where it sometimes we locate the trigeminal neuralgia surgery. When we open the schools, we will find this place to treat it by the microvascular decompression. We will also see on the anterior face the arcuate eminence. The arcuate eminence is one most important part of the petrous bone because it is one of the main point, the main reference when we make surgery for something like Pott's tumor, that is suppuration come after infections of the auditory nerves. The arcuate eminence is located at the posterior third and is made up by the superior semicircular canal and correspond to the posterior part of the facial canal. The arcuate eminence is also important, like I said, because when we will see it, we will know that inside of him it is the semicircular canal. So we will also see in the anterior face of the petrous bone the tegment tympani, that is thin bone, that is thin lamellar bones anterolateral to the arcuate eminence. And in front of them, in front and medial, we have the hiatus of the big petrous nerve that is located in front of the tegment tympani, followed by the groove of the same nerves. Hiatus, we will see again lateral the hiatus of small petrous nerve. That here is a schema, is a picture of the petrous bone. We can see mastoid cell. Mastoid cell is those cells with area inside. And here is the facial canal. It's a groove that will contain the facial nerve because, like I said, there is many neurovascular structure in the petrous bone. And this is one of them, the facial nerve that passes through the petrous bone. We will see also here the carotid canal. We will see it when we will develop the inferior part of the petrous bone. And here is the torn anterior foramen. We also discuss it when we discuss the anterior border of the bone. Okay. Let us talk about the posterior face. The posterior face forms the anterior face of the posterior canal fossa first. The posterior canal fossa is a fossa that we will see in the separation between the occipital bone and the temporal bone. It will contain the internal acoustic pore, that is the start of the internal acoustic meatus. And we will see the opening of the vestibular aqueduct, a small slot back to the internal acoustic pore. We will see again on this part of the bone, the fossa subaquata. That's a slot located up in the internal acoustic pore. What about the inferior face? The inferior face of the petrous bone is irregular. It contains the jugular fossa, in which the intern jugular vein passes. We have to say also that in this jugular fossa is very important for surgery, because in this we have some subtemporal surgical approach to make surgery with the anterior surgical pathologies of the temporal. The jugular fossa will also contain some nerves, some nerves, the anal nerves, that is part of the tens, and it is in this jugular fossa that we will see the intern jugular vein. We will see on the inferior face the stylomastoid foramen, that is one foramen that is posterior to styloid process, and it is the opening of the 7th cranial nerves. We will also see the carotid foramen crossed by the internal carotid vein, and the receptaculum gangli petrosis, that contain the gangli of the 9. We will see in these pictures, the inferior part of the petrous bone. Here you will see the jugular fossa, in which the internal jugular vein will pass, and like I said, we will see the canal of the Arnold's nerves. And we also see what the carotid canal here is one important structure to talk about in the inferior part of the petrous bone. Okay. Let us talk now about the superior border of the petrous bone. The superior border limits the middle and posterior cranial fossa. There is depression near the apex, the groove of the 5 and incisure of the 5 the groove of the 6 and incisure of the 5. The anterior border of the petrous bone will be medial part. We will see that the medial part is free and form the posterior border of the foramen lacerum. And like I said, when we have pathologies of the foramen lacerum at the anterior border, we can have two approaches: the subtemporal approaches and the middle fossa approaches, middle fossa approaches, yes, by craniectomy. And every of this approach we have its advantage and disadvantage. The posterior border of the petrous bone will link to the occipital bone and participate to the formation of the jugular incisure. So here is the foramen lacerum, and you will see here the posterior border of the petrous bone. That is the one here displayed, and we form the anterior border of the foramen lacerum. That is the one. Okay. Above the base, like I said before, it is a pyramidal bone. The base is external and the top is internal. The external face of the base is connected to the mastoid process and mastoid incisure. It will follow the occipital border and give the occipital artery. We will see in the base an internal face and occipital borders. At the apex of the petrous bone, like we said, it presents anteriorly the anterior foramen of carotid canal and form the posterior medial border of the thorn foramen. Okay, that was all from the petrous bone of the temporal bone. And it is important to say that the petrous bone, the lesion of the petrous bone will make the major symptom of the lesion of the temporal bones. Because, like I said before, it is the part of the temporal bone that contains most of the important structure, neurovascular and auditory system. The squamous part of the bone is this part, colored in pink, and that contains the zygomatic process. Let us talk about it. It's a thin lamella, vertically links to the anterior border and the basis of the petrous part. It presents two faces, temporal and cerebral, and two borders, parietal and sphenoidal. We have to say that the squamous part is the most franchisable part of the petrous bone. This part is the one we use most to entrance inside the skull. Is the seat of middle fossa craniectomy for many surgery of pathology of the temporal lobe of the brain, and for pathologies of the petrous bone. We have on this part two faces and two borders, the temporal face and the cerebral face, also called internal face or external faces. We have two borders, the parietal borders and the sphenoidal borders. Let us talk about them. The temporal face of the squamous part is divided in two by the zygomatic process. And we will see infra and suprazygomatic. The zygomatic process is presented posterior part with two different components, the root and the anterior part that is free. Here is the squamous part. You see the inner face of the squamous part here. It is divided by the petrous bone, by the petrosquamous structure, and we will see inside one of the most important groove of the inner face of the skull is a groove for posterior division of the mid-meningeal vessel. That artery is responsible for the epicranial epidural hematoma when there is trauma on the temporal bone. That is trauma when with high energy. The trauma with high energy will cause sometimes fracture of the petrous bone and epicranial epidural hematoma due to the rupture of this meningeal artery. And the external face of the squamous bone is seen here, and it is divided by this zygomatic process that we see. That is the root of the zygomatic process that is fixed, and down of the root we have the tympanic part of the bone. We will see it. We can see here the articulation of the mandibula that will form the ATM, articular and temporomandibular articulation. And here is the free part of the zygomatic process. This zygomatic process will divide the squamous bone into two parts, the supra-zygomatic process and the infra-zygomatic process. Let us divide and discuss. What about the root? The root of the zygomatic process is flat and from the top to the bottom. Its superior face constitutes the insertion of the temporal muscle. That is one of the most important structure of the temporal, because it will be used for repair, for craniectomy. Sometimes when we have hematoma, even even subdural or epidural hematoma. The repair will be taken by the temporal muscle. It is 2 fingers up to the temporal muscle and 2 fingers back to the coronal suture. We have to localize him very well, to know him very well. And concerning the root, inferior face form back the roof of the external acoustic meatus and front the articular surface of the mandibular fossa. We already talked about him here. Like I said, back there is the tympanic bone that contains the external acoustic meatus, and here the mandibular fossa we will articulate with the temporal bone and form temporal mandibular articulation. The free border continue back with the supramastoid crest and front of the external acoustic, the postglenoid tubercle. The postglenoid tubercle is here. This one. Postglenoid tubercle is here. Okay. The free part of the zygomatic process form the arc with the medial concavity and transversal flattening, joined with the zygomatic bone in front. The suprazygomatic part is the insertion of the temporal muscle up to the external acoustic meatus, marked up by the vertical foramen of the middle temporal artery. It's the seat of surgical approach, like I said, the middle fossa craniotomy. That is one surgical approach we use much for acoustic neurinoma. That is the best way to do it because we avoid, when we do it like this, we avoid the lesion of other nervous structures of the other nervous structure of the petrous bone. The infrazygomatic part limit up by the supramastoid crest and down by the squamomastoid suture. Let us talk about the cerebral face of the squamous part. It's irregular and concave and present the groove of middle meningeal artery. Like we said before, is this artery which will be responsible for the epidural hematoma when we have a traumatism of the petrous bone of the temporal. Let us say that we can pass through the squamous part of the temporal bone when we will have the fractures of the petrous bone. Sometimes the treatment is we do nothing when there is fracture, but if you have a fistula, a cerebral fistula with leak of the cerebrospinal fluid, and that leak is important, we sometimes open by the middle fossa craniotomy and just close the opening by autologous graft inside. Okay. The parietal, the border of the squamous part is first parietal, is semicircular and linked to the parietal bone up. The squamous part of the temporal is also linked to the sphenoidal bone, and you have the sphenoidal border that link anterior with the large wing of the sphenoid. Okay. After the squamous bone, we will talk about the tympanic part, that is this green part of the temporal bone. The tympanic part is one part which is more discussed in oral surgery for otorhinolaryngology surgery because it contains the organ, the acoustic and the vestibulocochlear organ and the external acoustic meatus. It's a lamellar bone open up and out. Down to the squamous part and in front is located down to the squamous part and in front of mastoid fossa. It presents two faces and three borders. The posterior face of the tympanic part is concave. It matches with the external acoustic meatus and contains the tympan membrane. The anterior face constitutes the posterior wall of the mandibular. The lateral border limit the external acoustic pore and give insertion to the cartilaginous part of the external acoustic meatus. Anterior, the greater tympanic spine, and posterior, the smaller tympanic spine. Here we can see the cartilaginous part of the external acoustic meatus. That is a part of the tympanic part of the temporal bone. Let us say some word about the mastoid. The mastoid is a conical prominence projecting from the undersurface of the mastoid portion of the temporal bone, located behind the external acoustic meatus and lateral to the styloid process. It represents the entry point to perform posterior petrosectomy. It is separated from the suboccipital bone posteriorly through the occipitomastoid suture and superiorly from parietal bone and squamous part through the parietomastoid suture and supramastoid crest respectively. Anteriorly, it connects with the external auditory canal through the spine of Henle. Okay. Thanks for your attention.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Arnold. You can hear the applause in the background. Okay, great. Great. I have some questions, but let Ulrich and Dylan ask first. So Ulrich and Dylan, do you have any comments or questions for Arnold?
Yeah, I'll start first. First of all, congratulations to Arnold. It was a brilliant presentation. Like we said last week, I mean, the temporal bone is not easy. It's a very complex bone and very important in neurosurgery. But Arnold did a really brilliant job to break it down and come up with the anatomy, the surgical importance, and very key aspects. That was really wonderful. All in all, we are happy and proud to be part of a team with such a brilliant and future neurosurgeon in Africa. Yeah, that's all I have to say for the moment.
Well, you know, I have a question, well, actually a comment. When I was taking neuroanatomy in med school, I knew it was going to be a daunting subject. One way I prepared, and I don't know how Dylan and Ulrich prepared, but I used a program text called Sidman and Sidman. How did you study, Arnold, for neuroanatomy? What books did you use? What sources did you use? Okay,
I found many things on internet. There is many books in neuroanatomy, but it just concerns the brain and the nerves. For school anatomy, I used the Camina, a little bit in Netters, and many articles on the internet. I found many articles on the internet.
Does it help? Did you study much Rotan anatomy? I know he's a big authority on neuroanatomy.
Okay.
Do you do any studying of his works at all?
Not yet.
No. Okay. Okay. Maybe in the future. Okay. Dylan, are you there yet? You have any comments or questions?
I'm there, John. I'm here. I'd just like to say the presentation was brilliant because Arnold really broke down the temporal bone, a lot of details, and it was really great. I'd just like to add that actually, I don't know if it's the point of view of everyone, but with more diagrams like illustrations, there are some places, for example, the borders and the internal faces, which would have been greater illustrated with diagrams. So in all the presentation was great, but with more diagrams would have been more and better.
Did you hear the common question, Arnold, or?
I just want to say that I found a lot the diagrams of temporal bone, but it's not easy. If somebody have those many diagrams, I will be able to accept them. Just share it to me, and I will add it for the correction for the last version of the presentation.
Okay, great.
Any more comments or questions? Now, you one of the things that I was impressed with this neurosurgery community, because people ask me, why are you doing neurosurgery? Is because I met some avid users of social media, like Ipcherian, who is leading the way actually with this particular type of platform. It allows us to have presentations like you did today of neuroanatomy to students. Hopefully, we know there's a shortage of labs, neuroanatomy labs. Arnaud, did you get to go to a neuroanatomy lab during medical school, or is that something you really have to go outside of Cameroon to do? Like a cadaver lab, any live dissections?
It's something we have to go out to Cameroon to find, because here there is no anatomy laboratory, and there is not anatomy with dissection. We just learn in books and we find on the internet, like I said before.
Well, it really comes down to refrigeration, and we're doctors here. We can talk like this, but it's necessary for the cadaver to be well preserved, so the anatomy is distinguishable when they treat it, and they treat it with different chemicals to preserve it, formaldehyde and other things. So I know labs are limited because of most medical schools can't afford to build a lab with refrigeration unit, et cetera, et cetera. So you probably have to get to a metropolitan area.
Maybe we will be the one who will start with it, with the section of the cadaver.
Oh, do you have one there in the Cameroon that does it?
Not yet, because like I said, maybe we will be the one who will start.
Right. Right. I think, well, hopefully we'll be able to help having videos of live dissections. That might help a little bit. So next, of course, it's better to go, but hopefully we'll be presenting cadaver dissections with good cameras, because when you televise a conference like that, you can't just have the face. You got to have the overhead view for the dissection. You have to have the microphone to the dissector, but it can be done, and we're going to be doing that.
Yes, it will be very good.
Yeah.
And it will be very helpful.
Yeah, another option I noticed, I don't know if you met Victor Hugo Perez, but he gave a lecture the last 2 weeks, and he'll be giving it next week. He does a lot of dissections, and we'd love to televise a lot of his dissections, and hopefully we'll do that in the future. I want you to say hi to Dr. Kabulo. Dr. Kabulo, are you there? He's a neurosurgeon from the Congo. I don't know if you met him. He may have stepped away. Dr. Kabulo, are you still there? He may have stepped away. Anyways, yeah, hopefully we'll have more live present. Would you like that, Ulrich?
Yeah, obviously.
At least a televised dissection.
No, that would be great. Having dissections will really help, especially those of us in low and middle income countries. Unfortunately, like you pointed out, we've been doing a lot of anatomy and having to sort of guess, try and imagine, use your imagination to be able to understand. So it always makes it difficult when you get when you get in front of a live case. It was like Dr. Kabulo said last time, that's why you need not only the theory, but you equally need this live anatomy. You need these dissections. You need to get into the R to better get understand this. And that's the importance of a platform like Neurosurgical TV, you know, when you have people like Abe Shirian, you have people like Dr. Kabulo, Rakesh, who come from different places, they can actually give you the information and the opportunities to learn more. So it's a great opportunity being on Neurosurgical TV. And obviously anything you would do in that sense will be welcome.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Rick, let's hear from Rakesh. Rakesh, during medical school, what sources did you use for neuroanatomy? And did you do live dissections? Rakesh, are you there? Please tell me you're there. I don't let number 2 bail on me. Rakesh, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, could you tell us what sources you used to study neuroanatomy in med school?
Yeah, can you people hear me?
He's got a, you have a low bandwidth for Rakesh. Maybe you could type in. We're learning how to deal with
he could just stop the video, feed and then speak.
We didn't have, we had dissections. We had dissections daily in our in the last year.
So you went to dissections. You traveled.
You can hear now? Hello?
Yes, we heard you. So you traveled to dissections?
You can hear now?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah, we went to dissections.
So you traveled
to
dissections
and we had no, not traveled. We had in our hospital only, and we had in our hospital only, and we also had osteology classes. That's a bone. Yes, we did in the first year, but not much once you reach neurosurgery attention on temporal.
Well, when I was in med school, they didn't do much dissection. We did a full dissection of the body, but we concentrated on the thorax and the stomach. We didn't do much brain. I got the impression they didn't have the professor didn't know much neuroanatomy. It was mostly, thoracic and abdomen. So I don't know what the deal is. But we'll do our best, Ulrich, to get Victor. One thing I was thinking about, Ulrich, and you guys can give me some feedback on this thought, is to have Victor actually comment on his videos that he's done. So in other words, he won't do it live. He'll play his video and he'll be in the background commenting. And possibly we could stop and get feedback and continue on. Do you think that idea might work, you guys?
Yeah, that would be a great idea. That would be a really great idea.
Yeah, because he's made some great videos. You've probably seen some of them. And maybe we'll be able to say, oh, Victor, slow down. Could you please explain this? And could you please explain that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That'll be really good. That'll be really good, to be honest.
To take it further, there's a method in the United States called the Khan method, which is mostly showing videos. I think a good way to run that, Ulrich, is to give you guys the video before the lecture so that you know the video, and then have Victor go over it with you guys.
Yeah, that'll be a lot better. Like we go and watch the video, and then we have our questions, and then he walks us through so that we better understand. Yeah, I think that would be.
Yeah, that's kind of like a variation. It's called the Khan method, K-A-H-N. Bill Gates is a big believer in his system of video teaching. Makes great videos. Google his name is K-A-H-N, the Khan method. And I think it might work here. We'll send you the neuroanatomy video of Victor, and then Victor goes over it. But we'll talk about that later. Anyway, okay, Elena came in. Okay, good. I'm glad you get to meet the head of the Motor Dandy of Romania. She's coming in now from a train with her smartphone. Hopefully she
That's
gets
cool.
There.
Yeah.
Poor girl should be overwhelmed.
Hello,
Elena.
There.
Elena, can you hear me? There she is.
Hi.
Hey, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm on the train right now on my way home. I haven't been home since February.
Well, Elena, I want you to meet everybody. We'll start with our
wonderful, Elena. That's nice.
We'll start with Arnaud. Arnaud, could you please introduce yourself to Elena?
Good evening,
Go ahead, Arnaud.
Elena.
Hello.
I know.
Hello, I'm Arnaud Douala. I'm first year neurosurgical resident from Cameroon.
Okay. Elena, you're the head of Walter Dandy in Romania, correct?
The
Yes,
former
yes.
head, I think.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
My sound is not very well.
Okay, you're the head of Walter Dandy in Romania, correct?
Yes, actually, I have the honor to be the president this year, but we're like a little family, so the titles don't matter that much. But yes, I'm the head this year, and
Yeah, and Ulrich,
it's
you
an
can
honor for me
consult.
because I grew up with Francesca and Tabitha and Dan and all of my colleagues, and they support me very much. And every time I need some help, they are there. And when we organize workshops or the meetings or going into the OR, they are always there and help me very much. So I'm very grateful for their help. And it's not something that I do on my own. It's a whole team, and we are the crew this year is composed of many other members, the students from the 3rd to the 5th year. So
Well,
I'd like to consider our club a little family.
well, we televised.
The ambassador, let's say.
Okay, we televised a couple of conferences from Romania, and Elena can help you, Ulrich, set up. She set it up where she just used a laptop as a camera and as an audio device, and she did that, Ulrich. She set it up.
Yeah, well, we really been able to do it, but last week I wasn't able to do it in Rwanda because I was actually there with Dylan. We had a difficulty, like I told you. There was no Wi-Fi. Yeah, there was no Wi-Fi. That's why we couldn't televise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really terrible. I think Dylan can tell you about it. We spent 2 full days and there was nothing, like literally nothing, no Wi-Fi at all.
Oh,
so
okay.
we televise.
Well, if you have any problems, Elena can help you, I think, set up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Wi-Fi is not such a great idea. Try to connect through a cable because the connection will be much better. And the speed will be better.
Okay, thank you very much.
Try to connect through a cable because the Wi-Fi goes much slower.
Yeah, if you just have a decent connection and a laptop, we can go ahead and do a good.
Here in Romania, we are.
Yeah, the possibilities are only limited by our imagination. So, Dr. Gabullo, do you want to say hi to everybody?
Join them later.
Dr. Gabullo, Elena?
Hi, Rakesh.
Hi, Kabullo.
Dylan and Elena, how are you?
Nice to see you, man.
Guys?
I'm very fine. It's the first day of holiday for me, and I'm very excited. I'm gonna meet my family in an hour, like so.
Okay, Dr. Bennett, Rakesh is my best friend. I was with him in Antalya last year.
Oh, really? You guys met each other?
Yes, we know each other. We were in Antalya last year, attending the IBNC course.
Oh, good, very good, very good.
This year,
I think you're going to meet him in China too in September.
Yes, we are going to meet again in China in September, of course.
Rakesh, you're going to China, right?
Rakesh?
I think he's going to China. Ulrich, are you going to China?
Definitely, we'll have a neurosurgical TV booth.
yeah, we're gonna rock that place, Ulrich. We're gonna rock it.
Yeah. We represent.
Well, I want to have Chinese hors d'oeuvres served.
Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of computer stations, hopefully so people can use them and create activity.
Yeah.
Because Rakesh, are you going to China, Rakesh?
Yes, he is.
Is
I
Rakesh
will
online?
be there. I will be there. So will Hira. So you're going to meet the whole team. So, okay, I guess we'll wrap this up. Thanks everybody for coming. And especially Elena and Arnaud for the first time, Arnaud, I guess. And we welcome you back next week. So I'll just wrap this up. Thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you next Sunday. You can stay here. I'm just going to stop recording.
Yeah,
See you
well,
next week.
thank you very much.